Alright. World Addiction Day. Founded by the RAEL organization. When I say RAEL, I mean Mr. Hall as well. It's sort of the same meaning. RAEL is Mr. Hall, and Mr. Hall is RAEL. And Mr. Hall is what has made RAEL, and that's what makes RAEL. And yeah, so good evening everybody. It's World Addiction Day. And I think this is a day that is very, very close, very, very close to my heart, because of where I've been and what I've been through and what this organization has been through with me. Tonight I'm going to tell you some stories, and you might even think to yourself, why am I sitting here? And I can tell you, first of all, I'm sitting here because there but for the grace of God go I. That's a saying that was taught to me and that is felt by me. And it was taught to me by Mr. Hall. And it's always said in a very humble way. So World Addiction Day, 21st of September. Everybody knows an addict. We have Women's Month. We have days that are recognized for many different illnesses. But I think that the world needed a World Addiction Day. I spoke to a man today on the phone that said that he was in tears. He was part of the old Sun Up, and he was talking about a 53-year-old man that's in a homeless shelter that was also a very good policeman and went through a couple of things. And the country is in pandemic. The world is in pandemic when it comes to drugs and drug addiction and pharmaceutical addiction, any something kind of addiction. And the sort of loss of connection with people and human beings. Social media can be a good thing, but it also, you lose that human touch. So first of all, I want to start off by saying thank you to Mr. Hall that started the initiative, that started RAEL, that has done everything over the years that he has for addicts. Some of them are with us today, and some of them aren't. I think, I know many addicts and people along the way that didn't make it to be able to sit here and celebrate, either celebrate or mourn or think about, or even take the time to think about what World Addiction Day means. World Addiction Day and the other initiatives started by RAEL and Mr. Hall represents the freedom from pain. It represents a person with a dream, willing to go any lengths to get it. And it represents love, true love for your fellow man, that is so unconditional that it outweighs any disconnection of what the world does when you become addicted, when you go through things. And I'm mainly just maybe going to speak about my experiences with RAEL and the way I've seen it from the start. And I think all of us should maybe first think of the loved ones of those and the very people as well that haven't made it out of addiction, that didn't get the chance that we've got, the chance that everybody over here in the recovery center has got, and the families of those people. I think we should also keep in mind that, with it being Monday, there's different addictions that have different natures, and the effects of it is real. So World Addiction Day represents a day that all these things come into play. It's a more sort of outstanding day because it's such an unrecognized and such an ugly stigma attached to addiction that some people just don't come back from it sometimes just because of the stigma and the disconnection and the love lost for that human being that goes down the road of addiction. So thank you all for watching this evening, for joining us, for taking the time, to come onto this video. It's really not about me. It's really, really not about me. But what I can give you is hope. Hope the way hope was passed on to me when I was in a situation that I didn't think that I was going to get out of. So, good evening again, everybody. I see there's lots of names that popped up and things like that. And some comments and stuff. I'm just going down it now. And a lot of the people I know where I come from, know how I've struggled with addiction, and know what addiction caused me to be. So I'm going to go a little bit through the RAEL organization as I've seen it, and how it's helped me, and what gives me the drive, passion, and hope to sit here. And in the same sentence, sometimes cuck somebody out. But in the same sentence, have the feeling of wanting them so badly to get through what they're going through and to make it, and to see it happen, and for it to happen for them. Because I think that I'm the classic case of not being given up upon. So, I first got involved with RAEL in 2007. Obviously, when the RAEL meeting started, I was acquainted to Mr. Hall before that, and I went to these meetings. Mr. Hall had this blue Nissan bakkie. He had a painting business at the time, where even then he tried to help addicts, and he would give them employment. And I'm not going to give exactly how it happened and dates and times and what happened exactly next after the next thing, but I'll try and give you a breakdown and a picture as I've seen it. I think first of all, RAEL was started out of pain. It was started out of the loss of Mr. Hall's nephew, and also for for the sake of Mr. Hall's own sobriety. So RAEL was started with a blue Nissan Bakkie, and after it was started, I would see Mr. Hall on his sort of mission at the time, and he was running 5 support group meetings. He had a painting business, and it was all self-funded. It was so many selfless acts of just a normal day's work, and then just giving of himself to other people. And that is what sometimes, as I sort of grew up, I tell a lot of people that I only grew up at 32, but as I grew up, you started noticing and taking to heart and things what has worked. And five support group meetings a week in different areas were run by Mr. Hall. I know a little bit later on, Auntie Karen came on board, and they would run these meetings together, go to these meetings together, and also I think a lot of the behind the scenes work at that time already, where Mr. Hall was very vocal and not in your face, but he was obviously the face of RAEL, and a lot of the admin work and things like that, making flyers, doing all the extra things that most people don't see on camera. A lot of that was done by Auntie Karen. I'll never forget, I think it was probably about I'd been going to RAEL meetings and things like that, fell off the wagon. I wasn't serious about recovery and things like that. I started off going to RAEL meetings to please my parents, because I thought that is what was expected of me, for me to be able to come home from rehab. And seeds were planted in my mind at that time. Obviously seeds of hope and goodness, and seeds that grew inside me that I never thought would grow into me something that I'd use years later. And then I fell off the wagon, obviously. About a year and a half later, I started going back to the support group meetings run by Mr. Hall, and at this stage, then Auntie Karen was sort of part of RAEL and things as well. And there was a couple of 1 or 2 other people that were involved at the time, but it was a very, very hard and bad stage of my life at that time, where there were times that I wouldn't walk into a shopping center or into a shop because of how people would look at me. I was trying to get life right. I was walking very far to work. People that knew me, people that I had a casual job at the corner shop bakery, sort of growing up, and I knew a lot of people in and around my area, and this is where it really started getting heavy and bad and difficult for me. And people would drive past me and obviously not pick me up. I felt very, very alone and out of society and things like that. And one of the first acts of sort of kindness, I think, that got me sort of attached to. I'd known Mr. Hall and what he was about, but I hadn't felt what RAEL was about. And I remember getting to the meeting that night, and it was, like I said, it was even sometimes very difficult walking into a shopping center or to a shop just because you want to hide your face so badly, because everybody knows what you're doing, and everybody sort of knows what you're about. And what they don't know is that isn't what you want to be about at that time. And there I got to the RAEL meeting, and I was welcomed with such love and respect that it felt weird to me at that time. It felt so strange to me, that because we'd usually have a smoke outside and a cup of coffee first, and nobody was looking at you funny. At that stage, I even felt very inferior around my own family, obviously because of my actions and my shame and my guilt and things like that. And I got to this meeting, and I was given a big hug, and they told me it's going to be okay. I didn't know that years later of not listening, the road that I was going to go down. It's addiction that we're dealing with. I didn't know that a year later I'd lose my best friend, and Mr. Hall would speak at his funeral. I didn't know that years later, sitting over here, that out of a group of 12 friends that done a lot of sort of naughty things together, that only 3 of us would be alive. By the time I was 32, 33, only 3 of us still alive. And at that time, things started obviously going bad. And we sit here and we laugh and we joke, and we can do that because obviously we've dealt with the past. And at that time, when a person's in that state where you're walking around looking at the ground, you've given up on rehabs, because at that stage I'd been to a few, and I found something in these meetings that besides the truth being told, that made me want to stop. And I was at a stage where there was also a couple of deaths in the family and close people and things like that. But I was already at a stage where I was questioning myself, why when I go to funerals I can't cry. I look around me and my family and loved ones are crying, and you feel so not even cold at the time. You feel abnormal, and you look around you and you think to yourself, this is what I'm meant to be doing, because you're meant to be feeling, you're meant to be crying, that that you're supposed to feel something, and there's just nothing there. And so after this time, I got very involved with RAEL. I could phone Mr. Hall at any time of the day. I could, or any time of the night at that stage. And I don't know if I took it personal, and to me it felt like, I see today, obviously, with all the phone calls and things that come through daily, that I wasn't the only one phoning. Yet he answered every single time. Yet it was always, are you okay? Do you need help? What can I do for you? Where can I meet you? What's going to make you feel better? I've told this story before about, there was a coffee shop in Buddha called Memories, and Mr. Wall used to meet me there quite often, and there was obviously different stages and things like that through my addiction, where I didn't want to face people, where I didn't want to be around people, and I thought nobody wanted to be seen with me, and those were one of the stages when he would tell me to meet me there, and it would give me that little bit of confidence or love for myself or inside myself that it's very difficult to explain, that would make me feel part of something again, and not part from, because I felt like an alien on my own planet. And I'm not saying poor me, because obviously, there were things that I was doing that was driven by my addiction and all of that, and things that I'm not proud of. But also those very things that people are going through right now. I got a very, very hard sore call today from somebody's brother that was with me at school, that has also got permanent brain damage and mental illness from drug addiction. And that's why I started off that day, but for the grace of God go I. And so at that stage I started doing family interventions with Mr. Hall. This was around about 2008. I had a bit of a good recovery run, and I was listening and things like that. And I don't obviously blame my dad, but like I was talking about the time when I was sort of just trying to get life right, I'd done a lot of damage in the household and things like that. Even if they were going to the same place or in the same direction, they wouldn't give me a lift, which I honestly, I don't blame them. I would have acted in the same way. And one of the big things that also stuck out for me was that, when I walked into somewhere or I went somewhere, then people used to put their phones in their pockets. You would see people nudging each other and like sort of, hey, there's that oak kind of thing. Or, some of them would give a grin, or some of them would think like, oh shit, like here's this oak. I wonder what's going to happen tonight or today, or what's going to go missing, or whatever the case might be. And one of the things that also sounds very small that stood out to me was I would walk to these meetings, and I think, being just about sort of homeless and isolated from the world, one night Auntie Karen also gave me a lift home. And at that stage, I can tell you now, a lot of us take a lot of things for granted. Climbing into your car and going to the shop, or climbing, or whatever the case might be, going to your fridge and opening it, or just human connection. And it also felt just so strange that these people that knew me but didn't know me, and that had heard all these things about me or knew about me as well, would allow me so close to them. And I think over the years as well, through these experiences of being connected and disconnected with Mr. Hall, what happened was, then I started going with him to family interventions and things like that. Things were going good, and we all know the story. I sort of stopped listening and stuff, went to less and less meetings, and sort of started dropping the ball because I thought I didn't need the meetings as much as what we all know that addicts and alcoholics and people suffering with substance needs to do what they need to do to stay sober. So over that time, I would see how selfless Mr. Hall was, and it really stuck out for me. I would ask myself the question. I wouldn't ask him at the time, but I'd ask myself the question: why is this man doing this? Like somebody phones him and says like a good example is I'm in Melkbos, and he's in Boeresig or in Edgemead, and he sort of almost drops what he's doing, and even in the middle of a job, he used to have a painting business, and he would drop what he's doing and ask me like, okay, somebody from Melkbos phoned and said that they have somebody there with a drinking problem, or they're struggling with their son or daughter or whatever. Are you going to take a ride with me? And I didn't realize at the time that was helping keep me sober just for an extra hour. It was just helping me stay sober for just that extra bit of time each time. And I always thought that, like, hey, why does this guy do this, And obviously, as the years went on of my connection and disconnection to RAEL, I realized that. So eventually, obviously, I knew about Mr. Hall speaking at schools, at funerals. I knew some of the stories he had told me about financing it himself to pay the bail of addicts in prison that was convicted with possession cases, because obviously RAEL, and when I say RAEL I mean Mr. Hall. We disagree with the prison system when it comes to addiction. And so he would go testify in court for addicts. He spent long days outside of the Cape Town High Court and things like that, outside Parliament, trying to push for different laws for addicts, trying to, never for himself, because he was already sober at this stage, and the fight was just always for addicts. I've seen him speak in marquee tents in very sort of underprivileged, poverty-stricken areas where the motive couldn't have been for anything besides to give these people hope. I've seen him speak on videos. I've seen him do marches that is obviously self-funded. I have to say self-funded because people always, it's human nature to talk about money and that it's a money making thing. I've seen him take us all on outings here where you feel uncomfortable in your own skin after a couple of months in recovery. I like I say, I came off a 4-year binge, 4 years, not 4 months of using drugs every day, 4 years of every single day, and I've explained before that eventually the drugs stopped working, and I was ended up eventually in a state, in a bad state in around about 2013. At this stage, like I've said in my story before, I'd been to prison. I'd lived on cement floors by Nigerians. sort of working week in, week out, just to sort of maintain addiction and my drugs. I'd been to prison. I'd lived on the streets. I'd been to a couple of rehabs. I'd been to institutions. I'd been rushed to hospital on more than one occasion. I'd at this stage also overdosed on trips, something like moonflowers called Malpitta, where I was so out of it that I didn't smoke for 9 days because I didn't even know that I smoked cigarettes. I woke up in hospital with a nappy on, and yeah, I've been in situations where my family was told, if I survive, I'm definitely going to be a vegetable. And yeah, I sit today, and it's different, you know. I've been in a situation where I thought maybe I just need to accept that this is what I do and who I am, and I can't get away from it. Nothing's working. I've been addicted to the detox meds that have been prescribed by doctors for me to get off heroin, and it just took me to a whole another deeper level of addiction. And through this time, obviously, you know, with the nature of addiction, you know that somebody's telling the truth. You know, I believe that what Mr. Hall knows about addiction is God given. I've been to institutions. I've been to hospitals. I've been through different prison and corrective programs. I've been to psychiatrists and psychologists and all of that, and I think his way of working and things like that is it's something working through him that is beyond human aid, and I think it's grace and the love of God. So I know that in 2011, Mr. Hall and Auntie Karen later went on to starting the farm. Auntie Karen had a really good job at Alexander Forbes, and obviously over time left her job as well to come start up RAEL and help the organization and things like that. A lot of the behind the scenes work and things, and left a really good job to come and help people. And I'll get a little bit into the story of me coming back again the second time when I did after I had fallen, and there was no one to pick me up. So yeah, at this stage, 2013, 2014, I was very desperate. You know, I think the nature of addiction sort of keeps you away and keeps you from listening to the people that are right. And I always knew and felt, and especially because of my previous sort of affiliation with Mr. Hall and RAEL, I knew what he was talking about. I knew he knew what he was talking about. And he had cucked me out many times. And you know, when I did fall in at the end of 2008, it happened exactly the way he told me that it was going to happen. Because I started catching on nonsense again. I started smoking weed. I started having a dope and all of that. And he told me, listen, this isn't going to work for you. And I said to him, nah, I'm fine. I've done this most of my life, and I've accomplished things. I got matric on drugs. I qualified as a chef on drugs. I went to work every day. Managed to get everything else that everybody else was getting on drugs, and they weren't. So, a bit of weed and dope isn't going to do anything. And he wasn't telling me this to eventually say, I told you so. But in my mind at the time, that is what it was. And that's what kept me sort of away. And I think the addiction or the illness inside me kept me from listening to what he was saying. And, I was totally stuffed at the end of 2013. I was looking for all ways out, and I was going to matrix meetings at the library next to Albo Gardens. And there's many times I was so desperate that I was walking from Boersig to these meetings, and at this stage I was cut off totally from my family because of my behavior. Mom would obviously still help me and give me food and things. I was living at a place where there was more drugs than water, because the water was cut most of the time. And there was just nothing left inside me. I couldn't get a job because I didn't even look the part or look good enough for an interview. I didn't know which way out anymore, and I just couldn't stop the drugs. And I got to the matrix meetings. I was going there, and the one counselor over there that had never been on drugs in his life, I was sitting there withdrawing from heroin, said to me that I must just wait an hour to see the nurse, probably around about an hour. Now, when you're withdrawing, you can't sit still. You've got one thing on your mind. I've got cravings and thoughts of using, and I'm sitting there feeling paranoid, like everybody's watching me, feeling out of place, and everything. And they put me on a 10 months waiting list. Or they first told me I can come tomorrow to get my detox meds. Okay, so obviously when I left there, I stopped at the dealer. I almost overdosed on that specific day, and I didn't want to use, but I didn't know how not to use anymore. And I'll tell you a short story. My cousin had a labeling company, a printing and sticker sort of signage, like shop fronts and car stickers and things like that at the end of Pardon Island, Brooklyn, on the corner there. And I hadn't seen them for a while, and I'd obviously come to the end of the road, not realizing that was the end of my road yet at the time. But I was so desperate to stop that I thought, okay, I'm just going to break into one more house to get enough money to get detox meds and try and stop again, So I hadn't seen my cousin for quite some time. It was over a year, and I managed obviously to break into a house, and it was I remember that it was Mother's Day, because I seen the house that I had broken into. I seen the children pick the mother up, and what I thought at the time was a good cause. And what happened then was I obviously broke into the house, organized the script for detox meds and all of that. Or I had a script for detox meds, sorry, and I needed the cash for the detox meds. So very desperate at the time, I went to go and I had a gold coin, and the owner of of the place where I used to change the gold wasn't there at the time. And it's about 4 o'clock the afternoon. So I thought, okay, I'm going to go from Brooklyn to town, and I'm going to stop by my cousin and ask her for taxi fare. I just need to go and change this gold coin in town, and then I'd come and give her 10 rand back. So I stopped there, and she said to me, like, look, I don't have money for you, and all of that. And I could see the look on her face when she seen me, that, if with the picture I got in my mind now, I don't think that I could have looked too well. So, I walked around there a little bit and all of that, and eventually the owner was back, and it was quite a heavy gold coin. That's why the guy working behind the counter couldn't help me, because the owner had to access more cash to give it to me and things like that. And so that night I walked home from there after getting the cash for the coin and all of that. At that stage, about 3 weeks before that, I woke up one morning and my cousin Sharon was there, and I walked out where the braai area by my mom, that was on the other side of the safety gate that I used to sleep in some nights, on a mattress on the floor. I walked out, and something just told me to speak to her, and I hadn't seen her either for a couple of years. And I walked to the entrance of the complex, of my mom's complex, and I said to her, I'm busy dying. I don't know what to do. I don't know how to do it. I was at that stage. Every time I was going to the deal, I was looking down at my arms, and I would burst into tears, because I was doing something I didn't want to do anymore, and I didn't know how not to do it. And somebody needed to teach me that. And I knew in my heart that at that time, I had given up on all rehabs, clinics, government institutions, all the advice that I had gotten from anywhere else, and eventually, a week or two later, Sharon was also helping me with food and things like that at the time, and she was staying in Rugby as well at the time, so it was on the way to the meetings, and I would try and pop in there before I go to a meeting, just to sort of touch base, and there was just that little bit, that just enough connection with sort of someone, and prior to that, I had also obviously burnt bridges with my sister and the rest of the family, and things like that, through my behavior, and I really thought that this was my last sort of cry or whatever for help. I didn't know what to do. And so, I'm getting to a point here. There was a conversation the one day. Sharon came to come and pick me up at the house where I was staying, and there was a conversation, and she told me, like, yeah, look, it's a bit of a spiritual program, and asked me, do I believe in God, and a couple of things like that, and said a prayer with me in the car. And the I can't tell you the exact timing and things like that, but I knew that her and my other cousin that had the business that I stopped at a week or two before that hadn't spoken, and I was on the waiting list to go to a government rehab, that a waiting list of 10 months, and I didn't think that I had 10 months to live at the time. I owned a pair of socks, a jeans, and not even a long top. I'd sold my last long top, I think, for a 10 rand at the Caltex garage, towards my next fix, trying really hard not to steal or do anything wrong anymore. Obviously driven by drugs and a whole lot of other forms of self-delusion and fear and illness. And Sharon asked me in the car, if after she said a little prayer with me and all of that, me not thinking much of it at the time, said to me, if I could choose where I could go to, where would it be? Who do I think could help me? And my response to her was to RAEL, to Mr. All. Obviously, because of what I had felt years before that, at the meetings and the way I was treated and things like that, irrespective of all my wrongs and what I was doing in the community. And I mean, to sort of give you an idea of who I had become in the community, I wasn't allowed in anybody's houses anymore. People and friends that I was acquainted with. People didn't want their kids with me. I was banned from some of the shopping centers, even though there's many of them that I hadn't stolen from. There's many people I hadn't personally wronged. And there was a time that I was running 14 housebreaking cases, and obviously I got charged on 4 of them. I pleaded guilty, and I never got bail on one case because the ward councillor of the area drew up a petition to say that I'm a menace to society. And that's not to sort of try and brag or anything. I'm just trying to give you an idea of who and what I had become at that time. I was stuck in something that had taken friends from me, and I would honestly rather be dead at sometimes the way that I felt, than carrying on and feeling the way I felt. And so, a week later, Mr. Hall and Auntie Karen funnily enough, went to my cousin's business for branding on the bakkie a week later. And my cousin obviously told them that it didn't look like I was gonna live much longer. And then that could have been the Tuesday that happened. On the Thursday, there was still RAEL meetings at the time in Edgemead that was run by Auntie Karen and Mr. Hall, and obviously at that stage the recovery centre had taken priority already, and so the meetings started sort of getting a little bit less and less, because here's these two people that 24/7 is just living their lives for other people, and they've got a farm out in Worcester where they're running a recovery centre, and they take the time out to still have a support group meeting in Edgemead, where it had obviously gotten a little bit less, like I said, because the rehabilitation centre had taken priority, and it's a lot of work. It is a hell of a lot of work. It's running a full house of anything up to about 30 people. Just the run of the house is already a lot of work. Then it's still dealing with people's issues, dealing with the families, and obviously meeting needs and requirements, and a lot of pain and negativity, and And I couldn't believe that, like I said in one of my meetings, I passed by my mom's place, because moms will be moms, and she invited me in one day, and she said, I'm going to let you in on one condition: that you stand right next to me, you don't touch anything, you don't move anywhere, you're not going to go to the toilet, you're not going down the passage, you're going to walk with me and stand in front of the TV. And I'd seen a show of Mr. Hall on CTV with Solly Philander that my mom had watched the previous night. And I said to my mom, like I'm mixing the times and things up now a little bit, but it's sort of more or less in the same time frame. Obviously, I was going through a lot at the time, and I can't remember exactly what happened before what, and all of that. And sorry, and I said to my mom, that's where I need to go, or I'm gonna die. Yeah, sorry. I'm just thinking of the time. It's quite hectic. At the time, you're the living dead, you know. And yeah, so obviously it was some kind of God incidence that that Mr. Hall and Auntie Karen went for branding on the bakkie at that time to Astrid, and that I happened to be there sort of a couple of days before that, and then meeting up with them in the meeting, and it was obviously, probably to see if I was serious or not, or if I was just had my back up against the wall, or what was going on. And all I said to them is that I don't know how to stop, but I can't anymore. And then they told me that they'd pick me up the Saturday. Like I said, I was in such a bad state that my mom didn't give me my toiletries or anything that she had gotten me to help me cope or cover some of my needs that I needed to come to rehab. I didn't have anybody to pay for me, and I laid in the back of the bakkie. I was in such a bad state. Obviously, when the bakkie pulled up, my mom then gave me my toiletries and a couple of items that she had organized to help me, that was needed on the farm and stuff. And I'm just expressing the state that I was in. She couldn't give me my toiletries before I climbed into the bakkie and before they were there, because I would have went to go sell it. And there was this sense of relief. And obviously also my dad very hurt and things at the time that he wouldn't come outside to greet me or to wish me well, which I can't blame him. I'd caused a lot of damage there. And we all know that dads are different to moms. And my cousin Sharon was there, and when she hugged me goodbye, I said to her that you'll never see me like this again. Because something in me believed that. And probably just the love that I had gotten. Okay, so then I got up here. I was loved unconditionally. And I got my energy back after a while. I started getting naughty again. I caught on the normal nonsense and a little bit of other extreme sort of nonsense. And Auntie Karen was like the mother figure over here, sort of filled a lot of gaps in the inside of a human being with her care and touch and things like that. Took the time to listen, because sometimes with the fear inside of you, Mr. All can come across as a very hard man. And sometimes at the time it was just a little bit easier to approach Auntie Karen with what you were going through and things like that. And it was very, very helpful. Because maybe on the surface she also came across as very caring and very soft and caring, which she was. But there was also a other side of Auntie Karen, where if you were doing well and there was somebody on the farm that didn't want recovery, and they would interfere with your recovery, she would be the very strong woman, very, very strong woman, and stand up for you, and put those people in their place. And so as time went on, I listened to the testimonies and stories and how the house of Davnik was born, and it was born out of pain. And that pain that it was born out of came a lot of happiness and success and productive, loving, capable members of society that had also been through pain. And the House of Davnik is generally the recovery center that is for the Dav is for David, and the Nikki is for Auntie Karen's friend Nikki Wilkinson, that also paid obviously the ultimate price for addiction, and paid with her life. And day in and day out, you'd just behind the scenes or just from the side, you would see how busy these people are with helping people. It's then when I realized that in 2008, when I used to phone Mr. Hall, that I wasn't the only person phoning. And I seen these two people always busy helping somebody, always busy doing something for someone. Not only addicts and the people in the recovery center, the people in the neighboring communities. There was lots and lots of activism and things like that. And and sometimes when when you get to a recovery center, or I got to the recovery center, and I thought I'd given up on myself completely, thinking that I can't get this right. And then sometimes Auntie Karen, being the woman that she was here, building up and setting up, and I tell you, working with tools and doing things and organizing and all of that would give a person a sense of hope. Seeing how when Auntie Karen would go down to Cape Town, then be in contact with people's parents, collect things for people, have the full run of the inside and outside of the recovery center, which is a lot of work, and that isn't what people see when they're watching the videos, or they're seeing the social media, or any of that. And teaching the guys arts and crafts, I tell you, even teaching a lot of the guys how to use tools, and I definitely think was the person that instilled faith in me. I'd sit on the grass over there, and Jeremiah 29 verse 11, which is sort of RAEL's Bible verse. I'd sit on the grass over there, and it was Auntie Karen that got me into thinking and believing and knowing and feeling that God exists, and explaining to me that the way I got here must have been God inspired, and all of that. And I obviously, I think at the time, most of us are mommy's boys and things like that. It was a massive help in my recovery to sort of have that mother's touch and care and things like that. And sometimes being a male, seeing a woman obviously operate in that way, it would make you think like, okay, wait, I mustn't be lazy, or I need to get this right, or if a woman can do it, so can I, kind of thing. And that's how it was. Okay, and then at that time, obviously, I got given a gap. I stayed here for a long time. It took a long time, but I listened to these two people and what they said, and obviously I loved it here because I hadn't even felt the kind of love for myself. I hadn't even felt that kind of love from myself, for myself, that I was getting from these two people. And as the World Addiction days sort of went on, and we would celebrate them, and we would go to different venues and things like that, and I just seen all these acts of selflessness all the time, and I seen joy coming from Mr. Hall and Auntie Karen, and that is what I wanted. It was the absence of pain, and that's what I could see if I could maybe do what they were doing and living, and you get many people that say something and that do the opposite. But over here I could see that life doesn't work like that. I'm not going to find the joy and happiness what they got to share if I'm not going to do what they do. So yeah, I went on to becoming house and kitchen manager here. I then later became general manager. I then later on pulled a very dirty, through this time and through the time from 2007, I had seen many addicts get opportunities and things like that with Mr. Hall. Not one or two opportunities, but many opportunities. I seen these two people getting backstabbed by addicts, by families, becoming the bad people in the situation when addicts relapse, when addicts do wrong, and I seen them being criticized, and I also seen them just keeping on. And eventually I got bigger than the game. I thought I knew too much, and I left on Mr. Hall's mother's birthday in 2016, which was obviously a low blow. It was wrong, and I later went on to a relapse that also took me to the streets and almost killed me. And now another little God-inspired story maybe is that some of you have seen the photos of what I looked like just before I came in here. that was the end of the beginning of 2018 that I had looked like that after relapse. Obviously, too much pride. Also thinking, I've wronged Mr. Hall in a way that and RAEL that is unforgivable and things like that. Earlier that year, when I was still clean, I'd met up with Mr. Hall, and it just felt right, you know. He had obviously forgiven me and things like that, and it takes quite a hectic person to be able to do that. And yeah, a few months later, after meeting up with him, I'd obviously relapsed, and I got completely messed up. I was in a state where I was involved with Mal, who I'm getting married to in October, in November. Sorry, I don't want to get that wrong. Who I'm getting married to in November. Obviously, we met up when I was still clean and things were going well and all of that. But I was in a state where she would come home sometimes, and I was laying on the kitchen floor with blue lips, just about dead, and I also caught on all kinds of bad stuff over there, to the point where she also, for her own protection and her kids' protection, couldn't have me at her house anymore and things like that, but also never gave up on me. And then one evening, and it's a funny thing that myself and Auntie Karen, we live in the same area. Where I was one evening, actually one morning, I was completely flat, down and out, and it was probably about 12 o'clock the afternoon. I was sitting on a window pane, staring at Bosmansdam Road, and thinking to myself, like, Yessie, how did you get here again? I had nothing. I didn't know where my next food was coming from. I had the pair of clothes. I owned the pair of clothes that I had on, and I was sitting there, sort of staring at the sky, and thinking to myself, sort of like, hey, what now, like, and I said to God, God, like please, man. At that stage, I'd been in the 4th month of a relapse. I couldn't stop, even though I had all the sort of theory answers and recovery experience from the past, and that I couldn't do it by myself. And the way that I know that this organization, Mr. Hall, Auntie Karen, and the whole of RAEL and what they do is God inspired, because, don't get me wrong, I'm no saint, I'm no Bible basher, but God must exist. There is a God. I was sitting there on that windowsill, staring at Bosmansdam Road, just opposite Edgemead. I was staring at Bosmansdam Road, and I said to God, please help me, man. I turned down an offer to come back to the farm while I was still clean a couple of months before that, when I had met up with Mr. Hall, and I was thinking to myself, how do I approach the situation? And I was waiting for my friend to get home from work, and what happened that day was, I begged God, please God, like, help me in some kind of way. Whether it's to prison, whether it's to wherever it is, it doesn't matter, as long as it's not here where I'm at now. Help me to get away from myself, help me to save me from myself. And yeah, I was waiting for my friend to come home from work at 5 o'clock. And he came home, and we were meant to go down to the cigarette shop there, to the Cedar Spa there in Boersig. And we were just stalled the whole time. And I had forgotten that I had prayed earlier that day. You know, God hears your prayers whether you're on drugs or not, whether you good, bad, happy, sad, whatever the case might be. If you believe that there's a God, He hears you. And so yeah, we were meant to go down to the cigarette shop at 5 o'clock, and we were stalled. Obviously, there was drugs involved and things like that. I was in the state to refuse, like, no, I'm not going to have drugs, like, obviously, because that's my problem, and I couldn't stop at the time. And eventually it got to a point where it was probably about something to 8, and we were like, okay, no, we need to go to the cigarette shop now to go and get cigarettes for the night and whatnot. And at the time, I had forgotten that I had prayed earlier that very same day. And I walked to the shop, and some of us will know there in Botman Street where the spa is. I came from that direction over there. And as I crossed the road to get to the spa, there was Auntie Karen walking into the spa. And something sparked off inside of me, you know, in 20 years of living in that area, in the same area, we hadn't ever bumped into each other in the shops or sort of in a public place there in Boersig. And now I realize, to me it was funny that on the day that I prayed and I begged, like, please God, help me, send something, send someone somehow. I seen Auntie Karen walking, and I ran up sort of behind her, and I said, how's it, Auntie Karen? I didn't even need to say much. I think she knew what I was asking, or what I wanted. And I just said to her, I'm completely messed up. I need help. She didn't say to me that there was no bad judgment. There was no bad vibes. She smiled at me and she said to me, oh, I'll contact Anthony. Why didn't you send him a message? And it's difficult to explain the sense of relief that you feel at that time, that there's a door open for you to live again. So that's how I came back here. You know, I think the work or the passion or the calling or the way I passed my days here was definitely inspired by these two people that have given of themselves so selflessly that it just drives you. It's driven me to want life. You know, I was in a place where these two people did climb into the pit with me, and both had their own unique touch of helping me up the ladder to get out of that pit. And it's very, very easy to hear this and think that it's just another addiction story. But if it wasn't for their love and their story, this wouldn't have been my story. And you know, I feel and think that because Mr. Wall is maybe the face and the more vocal side and that of RAEL, that the development and stuff of the farm, the tunnels, the water systems, the plumbing, some of the electrical, the brochures, the application forms, the setting up of different things, the run of the house. Seeing Auntie Karen doing all of that is what has been probably my drive and inspiration to be able to do it, and all the behind the scenes work that takes up a lot of time. And I think maybe I should just sort of take the time to thank these two people. You know, like I mentioned earlier, I'm getting married in at the end of November. I have two kids. I've had a Jordan is 15. I've had a daughter that will be 8 months. I live a completely full, joyous, happy and free life that I've got these two people to thank for. And I think that the hard and long work that Auntie Karen has done here has made it easier for me, in a sense. To keep going and running and do what we do here. As obviously, you know, like I said, RAEL and the organization has been founded by Mr. Wall. But they're both a classic example of, you know, you get parents or people that say, don't do as I do, do as I say. But these two people that I think built up this organization, and there's also other sort of unrecognized behind the scenes people that have helped me to keep on, you know. So I think we can all say a prayer this evening for the still suffering addict and their families. It's World Addiction Day. We deal with something that kills people daily, that wrecks people's lives. And if anything, I want you people to believe me that God exists, and there are people on this planet that God uses and works through to help and heal us. Don't give up on addicts, people. I tell you, the people that I've seen change here, and the men that I've seen them become, is what keeps me going. There's unbreakable bond between the guys that come through the program of recovery. We had some visiting guys here the weekend that had been through the program. We stay in touch with other people, with other guys that have been through the program, and there's a bond that grows, because like the two people that got into the pit with me and helped me every step of the way up the ladder and out of that pit showed me that kind of love. That is the love that I'm obligated to pass on to the men that come in through the doors broken. So thank you everybody for watching. Thank you, Mr. Wall, for, I don't know where you get the energy from. I don't know. How you've 15 years of RAEL, but it's inspired me and brought me back to life. Thank you for what you've done and what you do for every addict and still suffering person, and the RAEL organization, and what you've taught me. Thank you, everybody. On World Addiction Day, obviously, I beg of you to please share this video. It is not about me. It's not about the organization. But if there is anything that I can leave you with, is that if there was more people that just kept giving so selflessly, there'd be less pain in the world. Thank you very much, Mr. All, for what you've done for addicts and their families over the years. God bless you all.